Look at Chase at the 40. Look at that move. Look at Chase go. Oh, my goodness. What a gear.
He comes down to this in his car, end zone. Intercepted.
McPherson. And Cincinnati is heading to the Super Bowl.
Toss here. Nixon's going to throw. Open man. Caught. Higgins. Touchdown.
Drives. Touchdown. Joe Burrow has his first rushing touchdown of the season.
Hooday, Bengal fans. He is Maan. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse, the heartbeat of our Cincinnati Bengals. Maan, episode 8 is here. How you doing today, man? You good? How's your week?
My week has been great, and I still love that intro. It's the best, man. It fires me up every time I see it.
I know.
It's been a good week, and I'm ready. I can't believe 8 episodes down. It's flying by. I'm having fun.
And I'm having a blast too, man. We are having a blast. So today, Maan, we are going to dive into the defensive positional groups. We are going to we've already broke down the offense. We've already broke down special teams. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the defensive side of the ball, a big part of why we played in Super Bowl 56. We are going to talk about positionally each group, and then you and I are going to grade them, and I cannot wait to see your grades today for the defensive positional groups. But before we do, Ma, let's get to some news and notes. We've had a lot going on this week, right? We had OTAs winding down, media day, some other stuff that we're going to talk about. But before we do, a couple of cool things that I saw on Twitter this week. Our guy, Bengal Jim, he posted a picture of the beginning of the indoor facility. Did you see that picture?
Yeah, that was really nice. That's exciting to see that under construction.
Yes, awesome, right? It looks a lot bigger. You know, I mean, obviously it's got to be. I mean, it's got to be a large facility, but it's very impressive on how fast it's going up, right?
Yeah, very, very impressive. And you know what? I'm glad they're doing it. It's like I told Hobson a couple of weeks ago. A lot of people are fired up about it. I am, because it's going to be a sight to see at that training facility.
No, it's going to be awesome. And I know the players and coaches are probably very excited for it as well, especially now that we're going to be playing so much in January and obviously in the beginning of February. So the other thing too, so thanks, shout out to Bengal Jim for that awesome picture. The other thing I saw too that I absolutely love, Mon, is Kenny Anderson, Joe Burrow meeting up. It looked like they had a cool conversation going on. Two of the greatest quarterbacks in Bengals history, right? I mean, one guy obviously is going to be in the Hall of Fame and should already be in the Hall of Fame. And the other one obviously is on his way to doing the same. So very cool. What did you think about that picture? That was awesome.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Soon to be Hall of Famer Kenny Anderson. And the way Joe Burrow's playing, he's headed that way too. So, you know, hey, we're going to look back maybe in 15 years, 16 years, those guys shaking hands, and they're both Hall of Famers.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. Okay, so let's get into OTAs real quick. Again, not a lot going on. We've talked about this in the last couple pods. I mean, there's no pads on, right? But it's still cool to get see the guys out there run around, starting to build those connections and build back that chemistry, like we've talked about so much. The importance of that chemistry and where it took us this past year. So again, with OTAs winding down, the Bengals pushed out this media day. I know there was something posted on Twitter with a B and then flames in the back, and everyone's like, "What is this? What is this?" Right? Just like we always see on Twitter, you know, all of a sudden there's like those emoji eyes where, you know, something's going on. What's going on? Everybody's trying to figure it out. But the media day thing was really cool. I don't know if you saw the behind the scenes stuff, but a lot of guys posing for different pictures and stuff. I think DJ Reader was shoveling. Did you see that?
I did see that. You know, it's funny you say that. You know, I was on Twitter constantly refreshing because I was waiting for this alternate helmet to pop up. And I thought, like, hey, the Bengals are about to release the alternate helmet for 2022. It didn't happen. yet.
I know that's my wife actually said the same thing to me. She's like, Are they getting a new helmet? I was like, no. They're going to get a pick an alternative helmet. So that's what I thought too. I was thinking maybe that was going to be the helmet. What helmet they're going to go with. Real quick, what do you like, the old school, or if they go with the white helmet with the black stripes? What would you choose?
That's a tough one. You know what? I would like the white helmet with the black stripes. I
Wow.
really would. I think that would be an amazing look. Uh, Maybe the year after, next year, 2023, they can get the old school helmets in. But
Yeah, I'm an old school helmet guy. I think the
that's a
retro.
tough one. That's a
Yeah,
tough one.
it is a tough one because they're both awesome. But
Right.
I would like to see. I'm a retro guy. I like that retro look. Now, real quick with the OTAs, obviously, no Jesse Bates, no Trey Hendrickson. We know the Jesse Bates situation. Trey Hendrickson, obviously, what we've heard is that Trey is on his own doing his own workout, his own routine. I don't think there's anything that anyone should buy into Trey Hendrickson not being there. Listen, we gave that guy an incredible contract this year. If there's no money, there's not a money issue. I think, again, it's just he's done this a certain way his whole career, and he wants to continue doing that. And again, it's not mandatory, and I don't really. I'm not even sure if Coach Taylor's making any of it mandatory, and he really doesn't have to, because we've seen how great of a turnout it's been so far. Right, there was a couple guys missing in the beginning of OTAs this last OTA, but those guys came back. I think Von Bell missed maybe a couple OTAs or something, but now he's back in the building. So again, nothing really to buy into, I think, for Trey Hendrickson. You think anything different, Mon, about
No,
Trey not being
I
there?
don't think. I mean, of course, I'd like to see both of them there, but
Of course, of
I
course.
think you're right. I don't think there's anything going on there. Uh, let's remember this team played in the Super Bowl in February, and it was only just a few months ago. And I think Coach Taylor not making any of this mandatory is brilliant. These guys needed a little extra rest, and still, everybody but two is at OTAs, and that's pretty impressive. That
That's
really
really
is.
impressive.
One's a contract situation with Jesse Bates. The other one, Trey Hendrickson, personal. Like you said, he probably did this with the Saints. He worked out on his own. That guy, we're going to talk a lot about him coming up here in a few minutes. He's a Tasmanian devil. He's an Iron Man for the Bengals, and I'm not worried about him.
Yeah, I'm not worried about him either. And again, like you said, very impressive. When we had Jeff Hobson on a couple weeks ago, he said it, I think, perfectly, is that Coach Taylor has got a very good idea of how to run this team, right? He knows what he's doing. The players love to be around him because he understands that, listen, I don't have to run these guys into the ground. They're professionals. They're going to be here when they need to be here. We have now built a contender that's going to be contending for championships. These guys want to be there. I don't think there's anything to read into about Trey. And honestly, Jesse, I personally believe Jesse's going to be there when he needs to be there. I really do. I believe that.
Yeah,
But let's talk about Cordell Volson, the last rookie, also signed this week. So everybody now signed, sealed, and delivered. That's good. I'm sure Coach Taylor and those guys are glad that is out of the way. And same with Volson as well. Then a little bit, obviously, then we talked a little bit about the media day and how all that went. I think very cool getting those guys in their gear and doing that whole thing and getting the fans excited. Again, this is kind of what we've talked about, is the Bengals doing all these new things to connect the fans back with this organization, and they're brilliant. I mean, they're doing it brilliantly, like you said, and they are. I mean, we are now connected. We're on social media every day waiting to see what's coming up next, right?
Yeah, you're right. It was great seeing that. The players, they look like they're having so much fun at this media day posing. And, like the DJ Reader thing you mentioned, that was really neat. It's fun to see. It makes us happy as fans. And the players look happy doing it. And I'm glad the Bengals are doing that and posting it on social media.
Yeah, me too. I love to. It's kind of like an old Marvin Lewis flashback. Remember when he did the old shovel and the hard hat and we're going to work and keep shoveling and all that. So I love that. I love that from DJ. Also, the other big thing is with the media day, we get to hear from Coach Taylor. We get to hear from the man, the GOAT, Joe Burrow. Coach Taylor, again, just a very simple presser, 16 or 17 minutes, just kind of talking about what he's going to do here for the next couple of weeks. Said he's going to stay in Cincinnati, enjoy his time there. Him and his family, they love the city. And, real quick, Maan, we haven't talked about this on the pod yet, but Maan and I had almost a run-in with Coach Taylor when we were up for the Bengals Steelers game, and Maan and I are in the pro shop at Paul Brown Stadium, and Maan comes over to me like, "Hey, Jake, I think I just saw Zach Taylor," and sure enough, the guys in the pro shop were like, "Yeah, that was Zach Taylor." And again, I just how cool, Coach Taylor just doing some shopping at the pro shop, talking to the fans, and he just seems like such a great dude. I'm glad he's running the team, but I think more so, Mom, with Joe Burrow, his press conference was very interesting. And, obviously we've talked about the way he's different, right? He is everything you want in your captain, in your leader. He is everything you want in your quarterback at the professional level. And one thing I thought was really cool is, they said to him, "Are you going to take any time away?" And he's like, "Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I am locked in." And this guy he is locked in. You can tell that Super Bowl loss is still hanging a little bit.
Right.
He's going to say the right things and talk about, hey, we've moved on. But I'm going to tell you, I remember the Fiesta Bowl when he threw that interception and UCF got a good lick on him, and the rest of that game, we had no chance. He completely took that game over, and it was game over. And then obviously the next year he has the best season in college football history at the quarterback position, as far as I'm concerned, wins the national championship. And I think this guy is such a competitor. He is fueled so much by wanting to win and to be the best at his position that I don't think it's just quarterback speak. I think he really feels like, listen, man, it is time to go. We're a month out of training camp. I am locked in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was, the guy has a killer instinct. He really does. He just hates to lose. And, all the greats have it. Ultra competitiveness, Peyton Manning, every one of them. I'm not saying, listen, Joe Burrow has a ways to go to catch up to Peyton Manning, but they just have this drive. They just absolutely have to be the best. And you're right, that UCF game, he got his clock cleaned. He was lit up. And then I think he came back and threw 4 touchdowns.
He did.
He is. Man, I'm just so grateful that this guy's on our team. He's the best. And I know I sound like a broken record, but we are going to be relevant. As long as he's our quarterback, we have a chance.
And Mon, they did not lose a game after that UCF game.
Yeah.
Right? They did not lose a game. Came back, won in the second half, like you said, threw 4 or 5 touchdowns, and did not lose another college football game after that. And again, just to finish up that point, how awesome is it to hear your quarterback say it's go time, right? We again, being Bengal fans, we haven't had that in a while, where that guy is up front and center and just he, like you said, he is just fueled, right? Yeah. It's go time. So real quick too, the other very interesting part of that was they brought up Jesse Bates to Joe Burrow. And
I love it.
And you can see, again, you've talked about this, Mon, and I'm going to give you full credit for this. You have talked about the importance of Jesse Bates, not just on the field, but in that locker room. And you are right, because I'm telling you, when Joe Burrow says it, it's the truth, right? Joe Burrow, your quarterback, your franchise, the face of the Bengals, comes out and says, listen, we need this guy. Get this done. In so many words, right? Very, very politically, but we need this guy. Get this done. And I find it very interesting that Mr. Burrow and Mr. Bates are going vacationing in Las Vegas together, right? I know you and I wish we could be there. That would be a fun trip. But what do you think? What do you think about that? Because you're talking about really two of the very strong leaders in that locker room in Burrow and Bates. Very interesting, right? That Burrow is now coming out and saying, hey, listen, this guy is one of the best at his positions. He's one of the reasons why we were playing in Super Bowl 56. He's been there through the hard times. He's one of the guys that kept this team together, right, in 19 and 20. Yeah. What do you think, Mom?
I was happy to hear that. I've been on the record. The Bengals are a better team with Jesse Bates on it, and I want him to be here long term. When your star quarterback, the face of the franchise, says what he said today, that speaks volumes, like you said, about Jesse Bates. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. We have until the 15th of July. I'm gonna be optimistic. I think it's going to happen. I think that they're going to get a long-term deal done. Jesse Bates is essential to this team. We're about to go over the defensive stats from last year, the defensive performances. He was arguably the best player on our team in the playoffs.
Oh, I've said it. I've said it before.
Without him, we might not be playing in that Super Bowl. We need Jesse Bates on the team, and I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that it gets done.
Well, I think too. You and I, we've talked about this off air, and that nucleus of guys, right? Sam Hubbard, Jesse Bates, Joe Burrow. Now that nucleus now has really taken over that locker room.
Yes,
and when that situation happened, and you talked about this, Mon, in an earlier pod, when that situation happened, Hubbard, and Jeff Hobson talked about it as well. Hubbard and Jesse Bates helped pull those guys together. And again, I think, like you said before, you see guys like Mike Hilton, now Joe Burrow. You see all these guys coming out saying, listen, get this done. I'm with you. I think I've said it earlier too, is I see something getting done. I really do. I think that the Bengals understand that this is one of those guys that is going to help us continue to be where we want to be. And again, when the face of your franchise is coming up on his contract extension, which Joe Burrow talked a little bit about, he kind of made some jokes about it, but he was very nonchalant. Listen, this guy's so locked in. I really do believe he's not thinking about all that right now. I mean, obviously when the season's over, he will be, but he kind of joked about it. But when the face of your franchise is coming up for getting re-signed as well, you want that guy to be happy. And I think he's going to be happy with Jesse Bates in the building.
Yeah. The intangibles of our roster. Listen, we have talent. Burrow, we talked about the offense, we talked about special teams, about to talk about defense. There's talent throughout this whole roster, but it's bigger than talent. The intangibles, that locker room, that team chemistry, that played such a huge part last year. And I just don't want that to be compromised with a nasty holdout or, if he doesn't show up until September. I just hope that that's not the case. Let's get him signed. And I just, like I said, I hope it happens.
Yeah, you don't want to see a contract dispute, right?
No, you don't want that Le'Veon Bell stuff. You don't want that clown show. No.
Okay. But real quick, before we go to defense, one more thing. I know you're a big Marvel guy. They brought up to Joe Burrow. They asked him, they said, Batman or Superman? Joe Burrow says Batman. Mon, Batman or Superman?
I'm going to go Batman. That was one of my all-time favorites as a kid. It really was. And I do love Marvel, don't get me wrong, but Batman is one of my all-time favorites.
I'm with you. I'm with both of you guys. I'm going to go Batman as well. All right, let's get into the defense, Mon. And you talked about it a little bit, is, this defense is one of the reasons why we're playing in Super Bowl 56, right? It's not only is it one of the reasons why, but it's one of the reasons why we really should have won Super Bowl 56. And you and I will talk about that. I know you and I will talk about that. Then we'll move on, because I know it's still hard for both of us. But I'm going to go over some of the team stats real quick defensively. And I'm going to try to compare them to us offensively a little bit as well. Okay. So first downs, we gave up a couple more first downs than we got. But again, that's really hard to look at something like that. That first downs is important. Obviously, as a defense, you want to get off the field. That's your job, is to get off the field. But sometimes those numbers can be skewed, right? Especially if you're up by a couple scores and some teams getting some garbage time and that sort of thing. So first down's really not that big of an issue. Third down conversions, again, something I look at as a coach. It's very important to me. Again, the defense's job is to get off the field on third down. Our defense, not bad. I think right around 40 something percent as far as third down conversions go. But where we really excelled, Maan, is on fourth down conversion. Fourth down conversion, we only gave up 7 first downs on 18 fourth down conversions. So again, that to me is a very important role. And we saw some of those. Again, I'm giving you regular season stats right now, but we saw some big fourth down stops by the Bengals in that playoff run. And again, that's good. That a lot of times is going to be a difference in a football game. So total offensive yards, right around 5,900. But again, that's kind of skewed because a lot of garbage time going on in some of our games. Total rushing yards, we kind of went over that before. Again, very interesting. We gave up the same amount of rushing yards that we had, exactly the same at 1,742. Passing yards, about 4,200 passing yards we gave up, which again, not bad, but the completion percentage, not good either, which is again, very interesting to me as well, because I felt like, our DBs played well this year, but again, those numbers can be skewed sometimes. Average yards per pass attempt, about 7 yards. We had 42 sacks. Again, we gave up 55 in the regular season, so 42 doesn't look great as when you compare it to what we gave up, but 42 sacks a year, we'll take that. That's not bad. Touchdowns now. This I think is really the defining number when we look at all of these numbers as a defensive team. And you and I watched every game, every down. There were a lot of games where our defense, when they needed to make a stop, they made a stop in the red zone, right? And you see that when you look at these numbers, we only gave up 44 touchdowns this year, which is extremely impressive playing 17 games, right? So that to me is a defining number, which means we gave up the yards, we gave up the completions, but when it came down to it, the Bengals stopped and made plays when they needed to stop and make plays. And then again, time of possession, the average time of possession, very close to where we were offensively, with about 30 minutes. So, Maan, what do you think, and what do you have to add to our defensive total yards?
Jake, that's really interesting. The stats you read are very impressive, but to me, what makes it more impressive, if you compare them to the 2020 defensive stats, it really shows how improved our defense was last year. A couple things really stood out when I was trying to compare. In 2020, our defense gave up about 389, almost 390 yards a game to our opponents. In 2021, that number dropped to 351.
Wow.
I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but 38 less yards a game, that's important. That's more possessions for Joe Burrow. That's
Right.
less. That's pretty big. That's pretty solid. And obviously, that number of 350 or 351 in 2021, we can lower that this year, I hope. Here's the biggest one that really caught me. In 2020, opponents averaged 148 yards a game rushing. Last year, opponents averaged 102 yards a game.
Wow.
That's
That
big
is
time.
that is
Yeah.
big time.
That is huge. They had 5.1 yards per carry average in 2020. It was down to 4.3 in 2021. We gave up 626 less yards rushing in 2021 compared to 2020, and we played an extra game. Remember, 17-game season kicked in 2021. 626 less rushing yards.
That's crazy, Ma.
Think about the time of possession. The more possessions, the more chances our offense got. That was a huge one. And of course, you mentioned the 42 sacks. The year before, we had 17. That's a huge, huge difference. Now, listen.
Oh, my gosh. That's crazy.
In 2020, we had 17 sacks and 114 quarterback pressures. In 2022, or in 2021, I'm sorry, we had 42 sacks and 170 quarterback pressures. That's huge. Our defense played so much better last year. They took it up another notch in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
Sam Hubbard had a couple sacks. Trey Hendrickson. I watched the replay of the Chiefs game the other day on NFL Network, the championship game. Trey Hendrickson was non-stop. He was a Tasmanian devil. This guy was giving his all. I am so glad he's a Bengal. And, Hendrickson and Hubbard combined had 21 of our 42 sacks. We're going to get into that a little bit more here in a few minutes. But going from 17 to 42 and all those extra quarterback pressures, that makes our defensive backs look better. It makes
absolutely.
Our linebackers look better. And you did mention about we did give up 26 passing TDs. You want that number to be a little lower. I was looking at some other teams. The Buffalo Bills only gave up, I think, 12, which is shocking. They gave up 12 passing TDs last year. We gave up 26. So we can improve there. But again, we were ahead by a lot in about 4 or 5 games. And, these teams are just throwing the ball crazy, trying to play catch up. And that did skew some of the stats. But you know what? We're definitely trending in the right direction. Would I like some of these yards to get, defensive yards to decrease in this next coming year? Absolutely. And I think it could happen. I think our sack numbers could actually go up a little bit. Could we get up to maybe 46, 48? Could we get, 20 more pressures? Maybe we can. And that's going to help our team.
Well, we're definitely adding some guys. We're going to talk about that, right? We're definitely adding some guys, right? One named Joseph Asai, who we're very excited to see what he's going to do. I mean, primary edge rusher. Right. Those guys are very important in today's NFL, right?
Absolutely. Yes, they are. And it's going to be exciting to see him.
Well, let's get into it. That's a good lead in. Let's get right into our defensive positional groups, Maan.
Okay.
And we are going to start with that defensive line that, like you said before, I mean, what a huge and again, I knew we were right around 20 sacks the year before. That is incredible. I mean, that is a huge, huge difference when you're talking about, and especially in the NFL, you're talking about a lot of those sacks happening, on second and third down, which are getting teams off the field. But 42 sacks compared to 17 sacks is really impressive. But what's really impressive is the difference in pressures.
Yes.
You talked about what did you say we had the year before?
120. We had 100.
No, the year before.
Oh, the year before we had
in 2020.
I think we had 117.
117. Maan, Trey Hendrickson had 45 alone this year. Yeah. He had 45 pressures alone. And last year, in 2020, we had 117. That's insane. That's a huge, huge difference. And again, why we played in the Super Bowl this year, like you said before. So I'm going to go over I'm going to go over the defensive line first, and then I'm going to grade it and kick it over to you just like we did on offense. Sound good?
Absolutely.
All right, so let's start. So Mr. Trey Hendrickson, right? Let's start right there with him. A huge signing. I find it interesting because once again, we go out, we get this guy in the early stages of free agency, right? And everybody's like, oh, the Bengals are throwing money at this guy. He's a one-hit wonder, right? He had, I think, 13 or 13 and a half sacks that last year in New Orleans. So he's, these numbers are skewed and all this. He's playing with a better defensive line. He comes out, he gets 14 sacks this year, a personal best. And not only that, but like I said earlier, 45 pressures, which is huge, Mon. I mean, pressures are huge. He had 12 tackles for loss, 27 quarterback hits. Okay, so when we look at sacks, 14 of those are plays where he took a quarterback down to the ground. But he had 13 other plays, Mon, where he either got to the quarterback and the quarterback was somehow able to get the ball away, right? Or at that same time as the quarterback's getting the ball away, he's putting his helmet in the guy's chest. So that's huge. That's huge. And you talked about it earlier too. I'm going to go. I watched that Chiefs game too again. He had a sack and a half in that game. He was all over the field. So disruptive. Right. What's really interesting to me is I'm gonna go through the four starters on the defensive line. He had the least amount of tackles out of those four guys, but the disruptive plays, right? The hustle plays. And again, remember too, that's kind of skewed because, those nose and those three tech guys, they're on the field on all those rundowns. So that's a little bit skewed, right? But so we look at Sam Hubbard. Sam Hubbard ended up with 62 tackles. Again, he led all defensive linemen. We know what we're going to get from Sam. He is just a motor guy who is going to just be disruptive. Again, those 2 sacks in that Chiefs game were absolutely game changers, Mon, especially the one on 3rd and goal, right? When you had me standing out in your front yard watching through your window. What a huge play. And it was a strip sack. I mean, if we were there a little bit earlier, the game is over. It's over then. It doesn't go into overtime, right? So a huge play. Same amount of tackles for loss for him, 12 tackles for loss, 17 quarterback hits. He did only have 7.5 sacks. But again, I look at those 17 quarterback hits, and that's telling me that he is getting to the quarterback, right? Which is what you want. That's where you get those 170 hurries, right? That big difference from 117 to 170. That's those plays. That's those hurry plays where those quarterbacks can't go through their progression. They have to get rid of the ball, or it gets picked, or whatever, or they get sacked, right? And then we look at BJ Hill, who, to me, Mon, and we're gonna get into this in a later pod because I want to talk about, we don't have a lot, but some of the best trades in Bengals history, right? Obviously, Reggie Nelson, who I'm a big fan of. He actually played football at the high school that I'm a head football coach at now. So I'm a big Reggie Nelson fan. What a great trade that was. And then you look at, obviously, James Brooks. I know you and I are big James Brooks fans. That might be at the top. You got to put that BJ Hill trade at the top of the list, somewhere in the top 5, because what a steal. Billy Price for BJ Hill is unbelievable. And when Ogunjobi went down, BJ Hill was a big reason why, Mon. I'm going to give you some of those playoffs numbers, those stats that our defensive guys played in the playoffs. BJ Hill was a big reason for that. And obviously, none bigger than that interception against Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, which really flipped the entire game. Momentum, we talk about it as coaches. You can't coach momentum. You can't coach it. A huge momentum play that really changed that game. for him, 5.5 sacks from that 3 tech position. That's impressive, Mon. That's impressive.
Absolutely.
Again, we're talking about the hurries, 12 quarterback hits for BJ Hill and 50 tackles when Ogunjobi played a lot of those snaps throughout the beginning of the season. BJ Hill was a force when Ogunjobi went down. And even before that. But, I mean, the snaps he played when Ogunjobi went down were huge. And then our guy, the dude, right, who is the best nose tackle in football. You can argue with me. You're not going to be able to win that argument. DJ Reader, He-Man, to me, is the difference. He is the difference of this year's defense and last year's defense. He is the cog of the machine that really keeps this thing going. When you have a nose tackle like DJ Reader, who had 43 tackles, Mon, from the nose position, 2 sacks, 7 quarterback hits. Again, you talked about it too. Jeff Hobson talked about it. In Super Bowl 56, DJ Reader is the reason why the Rams didn't even average 2 yards a carry. And they came in as a team that was known to be able to run the football. They were all excited. Remember, their running back was back. He's going to play against us. DJ Reader, he just shut it down. He shut that down. So those 4 right there, to me, is a big reason why we are where we are right now. And the crazy thing, Mon, is you look at those 4 guys, 28, 27, 27, 28. None of them are close to 30 yet. Now, real quick, and I'm going to go over just the other guys too that I think are probably going to make this roster. I think Khalid Kareem, we saw some signs of some good things, right? He had a huge play this year that I know you absolutely loved.
I think it's the play of the year.
It really, I mean, against Denver, right?
Yeah.
The play he made against Denver that they were in the red zone, and he just basically took the ball. A huge play, absolutely huge play. Joseph Asai, who you and I both like, the guy's 22 years old, right? We're getting back an edge rusher that we all are very excited about seeing. And I'm going to tell you, Cam Sample, man, you go back and you watch that Tennessee game, watch that playoff game on. He had one of the biggest plays of the year for us. One of the biggest plays of the year. 3rd down and 1. Tennessee's on our 40-yard line, something like that. They try to run some kind of a zone read, and Cam Sample played it perfectly and was there to make the stop. And then obviously 4th down and 1, we stopped them on 4th down and 1. And that really changed the entire momentum of the game, because if you remember, Tennessee got that momentum back. And that 3rd down stop was huge by Cam Sample. Josh Tupou, again, a guy that we like. Tyler Shelvin, who you've talked about quite a bit on the pod, a guy maybe that we're expecting a little bit more from. And your guy as well, Zachary Carter, who you and I both like. I think he is going to be a big piece of that puzzle at that 3 tech position. Mon, I'm gonna go ahead and give us an A+. And to me,
fair.
To me, the A+ comes from those first 4 guys who, I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure there's not 5 better groups of starting defensive linemen in the NFL than the group that we have. When you put out BJ Hill, DJ Reader, Sam Hubbard, and Trey Hendrickson, I'm not sure you can tell me 5 other teams that have a better starting 4 than we do. So I give it an A+, Mom.
Okay, fair. I'm going to go with my grade first, and then I'll give you the reason why. I'm going to go with an A, and I'll give you the reason why it's not an A+ in a minute. Okay. Trey Hendrickson, I'm going to start with him. Listen, you pretty much hit everything right on the head. The guy has 34 career sacks, 27 and a half over the past 2 years. I'll be the first to admit, when we signed him last year, I wasn't too crazy about it. I thought he was a product of that great defense in New Orleans. I was a big Lawson guy. And I was so surprised. And I'm, like I said earlier, I'm glad he's on our team. He's like a Tasmanian devil. He's an absolute, he's a monster. He had 12 tackles for losses. Today I noticed Next Gen Stats, they have a different metric of measuring defensive ends. They had him ranked number 1. They had him at 79 pressures, 14 sacks, obviously. His pressures forced 5 turnovers, and they had him number 1 defensive end disruptor in the NFL. He had a pressure rate of 19.4. I thought that was really interesting. TJ Watt was second. Yeah, Trey Hendrickson, I'm glad we have him for the next 3 years. 27 quarterback hits. He is our Iron Man. Next guy, Sam Hubbard. I did some research on him. There were 6 other defensive ends drafted ahead of him in his draft. Some of them, Bradley Chubb, good players, Marcus Davenport, Lorenzo Carter. Sam Hubbard has more sacks than all of them. He has 24 sacks in his career. Bradley Chubb has 20.5. Marcus Davenport has 21. Lorenzo Carter has 14. Some of those guys are first-round picks, and Sam Hubbard has been more productive than them. Again, to me, he reminds me a little bit of Trey Hendrickson. Maybe not as big, but just high effort. He's, when you say high effort, people think, oh, he's not athletic. I think he's very athletic. That play where he chased down Mahomes that could have ended the championship game, caused that fumble. He's something else. He covered a lot of ground there quickly.
Yes.
He had 12 tackles for losses, 17 quarterback hits, and he, like I said, 7.5 sacks, really 10 sacks if you count the playoffs. He had 2.5 in the playoffs. BJ Hill, pleasant surprise. I agree with you when it comes to the trade. I wasn't expecting much from BJ Hill, but that first game against the Vikings, I'm like, who is this guy? Yeah. And he was steady. He platooned with Larry Ogunjobi. I'm a little concerned about not having Larry O because he gave us 7.5 sacks. He was very disruptive, and some of the guys like Zach Carter, Cam Sample, some of these people are going to have to step in and play that role and give BJ Hill a breather and hopefully get a few sacks. Let's get to DJ Reader right now. DJ Reader, that Titan game to me was one of the most dominant defensive line performances I saw. He shut down the Titans.
Agreed.
He was unblockable. Then again, like Hobson said, and like you mentioned, the Rams game, Logan Wilson was cleaning up and just tackling everybody. The reason why, because DJ Reader was keeping those big offensive linemen off the linebackers.
Yes, absolutely.
DJ Reader is key to this defense. We have him for a couple more years. Some of the reserves, I'm a big Shelvin fan. Hopefully he develops. He could give DJ Reader some quality snaps for us, give DJ Reader a break. Josh Tupou is a solid defensive lineman. I think he re-upped for 2 years this year, which is good. Talked about Zach Carter. Obviously, he's going to be playing rotational. Hopefully, he gives us some quality snaps. Joseph Osai, we saw what he did in that game against the Buccaneers. It was a small sample size. Bengal fans are really excited about it. It was flashy, but we still don't know. And I hope what we saw in that Tampa Bay game is what we're going to see in this upcoming year. But I'm excited about him. I am high on Kareem and Sample. I think those guys are going to be good rotational people. Hopefully they develop into like a Jonathan Fanene, Frosty Rucker, give us really good quality snaps. The one thing I am concerned about is Larry Ogunjobi. He was a key part to that defensive line. And I'm a little concerned with Hendrickson and Hubbard. They played so much. I need Sample. I need Kareem. I need Osai to give these guys good quality. If they come in, let Trey Hendrickson take a few snaps off. Let him rest up. Let's keep him fresher throughout the year because they played a lot of snaps last year.
And Trey, and if you remember, Trey was a little banged up there toward the end.
He sure was. And we can just get these guys that develop, come in and give us give these 15, 20 quality snaps a game. And you know what? Week 15, 16, 17, Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson could be fresher and come in there and perform for us. I give him an A. I didn't give him an A+ because I am concerned about the production from Larry Ogunjobi not being there. You know what? I'm still holding out hope that maybe the Bengals sign him.
I was about to say, don't close that door yet. Don't close that door yet. I think Larry O might be in a Bengal uniform again this year.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing.
And that would just solidify the defensive line as a whole. But let's go to linebackers. Obviously, you know how I feel about Logan Wilson. I think he's one of the top 5 linebackers in the NFL. I think he is today's linebacker. He is a guy that can run sideline to sideline. Like you said, he can clean up stuff between the tackles. He did it in the Super Bowl. If that Super Bowl ends differently, Logan Wilson is pushing to be the Super Bowl MVP from the way that he played. Obviously, that call against him, against Cooper Kupp, was absolutely trash. That is one of the best coverages I have seen by a linebacker on a receiver at that caliber. Terrible, terrible call. I don't care what anybody says. But to me, Logan Wilson is that guy that is quarterbacking that whole defense for us. And he is the centerpiece of it. And I think he is a must to re-sign him. 100 tackles this year, led the team in tackles, led the team in interceptions with 4. Again, but I'm going to go to the playoffs real quick, okay? I'm going to fast forward to those 4 playoff games. First playoff game, 12 tackles. Second playoff game, 8 tackles and an interception. Third playoff game, 10 tackles. The Super Bowl, 9 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and a huge pass breakup that the refs decided to give to the Los Angeles Rams as a gimme call. But I mean, that's incredible, Mon. The guy almost had 40 tackles in that span of those playoff games. He was a monster. He was all over the field. Jermaine Pratt, again, big interception against the Raiders. I think Jermaine Pratt, he finished with 91 tackles. I think by far his best season, and I think he's excelling. I think he is. We haven't quite seen the best of Jermaine Pratt, but I think we're starting to see it now. And I think that we're going to see even better from Jermaine Pratt this year. We know he's a leader in the locker room. We've seen that already. But I love Jermaine Pratt. Again, the Bengals only play really 2 linebackers on the field at a time. We've talked about that. I know you're a big Marcus Bailey fan. Marcus Bailey's the guy that made that big 4th down stop I was talking about against Tennessee, if you remember that. Cam Sample made the 3rd down stop, and then Marcus Bailey made that 4th down stop, a big play in our Super Bowl run. Akeem Davis-Gaither played 9 games, was injured. Same with Joe Bocci, played 9 games, got injured. Clay Johnson's another interesting one that came in and played those snaps and actually played well. Played well on special teams as well. So as a group, I give our linebackers an A-. They get an A from me because I think we have one of the best. I think we have one of the top 5 linebackers in the NFL. Mom, what do you think?
I'll start off with my grade. I'll give him an A. Logan Wilson, you hit it right on the head. He should have been. He could have easily been Super Bowl MVP. We keep on talking about that pass interference play. I think we need therapy.
Terrible.
That was terrible.
Yeah,
that was terrible. He has 6 career interceptions. He had 4 last year. The guy's instinctive. I've mentioned this in a previous podcast. How many times? Remember, Jake, you know this. We complained about our linebackers in the past. They were slow. They weren't athletic. It's a night and day difference right now. These guys are something else. He had 9 tackles for losses, had 100 total tackles, like you said. He only played 13 games. And the one thing that I liked, he was injured, but the guys that came in and played behind him, there was a natural drop-off because Logan Wilson is one of the better linebackers in football. But Bocci came in and played, and Marcus Bailey, they played really good.
They did.
And the drop-off wasn't that bad. And that's what I like. I like our key reserves. I agree with you on Jermaine Pratt. Pratt has really improved every year. And
Absolutely.
I hope, the Bengals always tend to sign somebody in August, a veteran. I'm thinking it might be him.
Oh, you mean re-sign? Yeah,
re-sign, re-up
Right.
contract-wise. It could be a Jermaine Pratt.
I've seen
played
that.
really well. Obviously, that great interception against the Raiders. But, the guy is a run stopper. He's athletic. And I think him and Logan Wilson are a great pair. Some of the other guys, Gaither, I love. I think the injury hurt us on special teams. They're expecting a lot out of him. He's super athletic. I
Very
mentioned
explosive.
Bocce. I mentioned Bailey. Remember Bailey? He had a torn ACL at Purdue. If he didn't have that injury, some draft pundits, I remember openly saying that he could have been a 4th-round pick. And I think his athleticism is starting to show. And I think he's going to be a key player for us. Clay Johnson, you mentioned him. Don't forget that play against the Titans where he came in. And, he tackled
Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry, you're right.
Yep.
And stopped him short of the goal line.
That was a big play.
That was huge. That was
big
huge.
play.
And you know what? Our linebackers are, I give them a solid A. Logan Wilson, please don't play him on special teams. Please don't do that again.
Please don't do that.
And I'm happy with that unit. And I think those guys, I think the Bengals are in good hands with them.
Yeah, and they're young too, right? I mean, they're all
they
young, which is nice. Like I said, Akeem Davis, Gaither, and Marcus Bailey. We haven't seen them, I think, at their potential, but I like both of those guys. I think both of those guys are guys that if they can stay on the field, they are guys that are going to help us. I mean, Akeem Davis Gaither, his numbers and his athleticism is through the roof. It's through the roof. All right, defensive backs. Let's go with defensive backs. Again, I've talked about it. I think as a group, to me, they were the MVP of the playoffs. And I'm going to talk about that really quick. Obviously, Jesse Bates, our starting 5 with Jesse Bates, Von Bell, Cheeto, Eli, and Mike Hilton. Those starting 5 guys to me were the MVP of the playoff run. Those guys played so well this year. Von Bell, in the regular season, 97 tackles, second on the team behind Logan Wilson. Obviously, 1 interception during the season, but a big one in the playoffs against the Kansas City Chiefs, which really, I mean, obviously that play in overtime, not only with him, but the pass breakup by Jesse Bates to get the ball to Von Bell was incredible. And with Jesse Bates, obviously 1 interception in the regular season, 2 of them in the postseason, 2 big ones. One of them in the Super Bowl right there in front of us, Mon, right there in the corner of the end zone where you and I were sitting for Super Bowl 56. 2 big plays. He finished with 88 tackles. Cheeto, again, I don't know why Cheeto doesn't get enough love. I don't understand it. You know, these NFL guys, they fall in love with Jalen Ramsey. Cheeto's numbers were better than Jalen Ramsey's, and it wasn't even close in the regular season, Mon. It wasn't even close. You know, the big one with completion percentage from a quarterback, almost 10 percentage points difference between Cheeto and Jalen Ramsey. I don't understand. I don't understand how Cheeto does not get the love. You know, interceptions are great, and they're an important part of this game. But pass breakups and the other plays that don't get as much love are just as important. And Cheeto locked his side down, Mon. Locked it down. Mike Hilton, I think he's the best nickel corner in the NFL. I think it would be hard for anybody to argue that. Obviously, his interception against Tennessee is one of the best interceptions I've seen in the last decade, where he reads that screen, that little bubble screen, and just snatched the ball out of the air. Again, remember, don't forget, Tennessee had the ball inside the red zone when he did that. And then Eli Apple, who, again, gets all this hate, but the guy was in man coverage, Mon. He was one of the best corners in the NFL. Right. One of the best corners in the NFL. He had like the lowest passer rating allowed, I think, in man coverage. Again, 2 interceptions. You know, everybody loves the interceptions, but those 5 guys right there to me are extremely impressive. They are the reason why I give the defensive back group an A. We talked about Trey Flowers a little bit when we had Alan George on. I love Trey Flowers. Trey Flowers made some big plays against some of the best tight ends in football when he had to come in and cover those guys. And also, you know, on special teams as well, Dax Hill, Cam Taylor-Britt, Tyson Anderson, those three guys we are very excited about. And again, I'm excited about Alan George, the guy we had on the pod last week. I think this is a guy that could push for the roster and be a big time special teams guy for us. And then I think an interesting one here maybe might be Brandon Wilson. I'm not sure where he's going to fit in. You go out and you get all these safeties and DBs that are very versatile, right? They can play nickel. They can play that boundary corner. They can play safety. I don't know. I'm not sure where he fits in, but I know he's a really good kick returner, Mon. So I give the defensive backs an A. What do you think?
I agree. I'll give him an A also. Cheeto, amazing pickup. I think in 2019 he had a great year with the Cowboys. He had an off year in 2020. Bengals ended up signing him. Bargain, $7 million a year.
Oh, crazy.
We signed him and I think Mike Hilton, pretty much similar contracts.
Yes.
And I think that was cheaper than who was it? William Jackson got with the Washington Redskins or Commanders.
Yeah.
And that was an addition by subtraction because they played much better or Cheeto played much better than him. He had 14 pass defense, 64 total tackles. Guy's super athletic. He's not afraid to get up and run support. I love watching him play. Mike Hilton, I hated him with the Steelers, but I love him with us.
I know. We both did.
Yeah, that guy, I think he's the best slot cornerback in football. You know what I like about Mike Hilton? His enthusiasm, it's infectious. I mean, how many times do we see on the sideline, he's jumping up and down, he's running up and down the sideline.
I love him.
Encouraging the offense. I mean, it seemed like every game he was doing that. And I think that, the team fed on that. I absolutely loved it. Listen, Eli Apple, I know he had a checkered past with the Giants, with the Saints. He played really well for us last year. He catches a lot of flack because of the Super Bowl. Listen, Cooper Kupp is Cooper Kupp. I mean, he did a good job against them. Unfortunately, that last drive, the offense could have helped us out a little bit more instead of putting all the pressure on the defense. But Eli Apple, we got him for another year, played really well. The guy was a first-round pick. He has
I'm glad he's back. I was excited.
Me
I was
too.
excited to have him back.
Maybe that light bulb came on. And this is the time he's ascending. He's still young. And he was an elite talent coming out of Ohio State. I'm glad he's on the team. We'll see how it goes.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. And, I mentioned, Eli. We got the rookies, obviously, Dax Hill. We got Cam Taylor. Those guys are unbelievable. Dax Hill could easily play corner if needed. Of course, Jesse Bates, Von Bell are safeties. I think the best safeties in football.
I do too. The best tandem, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We talked a lot about Jesse Bates earlier. I hope he's a Bengal long term. Von Bell, one of the best free agent signings ever for the Bengals. Great tackler. He's sort of the tone setter for that defense. He's a little bit of an intimidator, a little bit of a David Fulcher, not as big as David Fulcher, and not as big a hitter, obviously. But I just like him back there. We mentioned Jermaine Pratt for the linebackers. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals maybe try to re-up or re-sign him in August also because he's in the last year of his contract. Yeah, that would be great.
And real quick, that was one of the guys who Coach Taylor brought up today. Right. Was Von Bell and talked about his leadership and what he has brought to the Bengals. So I agree with you.
Yeah. And with the rookies, Britt, I mentioned Tyson Anderson, Dax Hill, got a lot of quality youth there. Alan George, we talked about. Hopefully he can, make some plays, potentially make the roster, at least get on the practice squad. Because I think, when we were researching that interview last week, he's got some really good measurables, that wingspan, that speed. There's a lot to work with there.
I think 80 and a half inches, right?
I know. It was through the roof. It was unbelievable. Crazy. And, of course, we got the special teams guys, Michael Thomas, Travion Henderson. Again, Brandon Wilson, we mentioned that. That injury did hurt us special teams-wise.
It did.
Hopefully he comes back healthy. We'll see. It was an ACL. But I like our defensive backs. It's an A. And, they're young, and I think they're still developing. And we have a lot of quality pieces, a lot of young guys that are hopefully going to come in and give us some quality snaps.
And let's not forget too, we talked about this guy earlier, but another sneaky free agent, undrafted rookie free agent is Abudarami Suare, right? Yeah. A guy who a guy who Hobson talked about as well as being another guy who's crazy athleticism, who could be a big special teams guy. But real quick, Mom, before we get out of here, I want to give you these stats. And to me, this is the reason why we played in Super Bowl 56. All right, versus the Raiders, our defense gave up 385 yards. They had 3 sacks, 2 turnovers. The Raiders were 8 of 18 on third down. The Bengals gave up 19 points in that game. Versus the Titans, the return of the king, Derrick Henry. Oh, we were supposed to be so terrified of Derrick Henry. The Bengals gave up 353 yards. They had 1 sack, 3 turnovers. The Tennessee Titans, Mon, were 1 of 8 on third down conversions. Bengals gave up 16 points in Tennessee against the number 1 seed. Versus the Chiefs, the vaunted Chiefs, the Bengals gave up 375 yards, had 4 sacks, 2 turnovers. The Chiefs were 6 of 12 on third down conversions, and the Bengals gave up 24 points, Mon. 21 of those points came in the first half. Versus the Rams in Super Bowl 56. And when I pulled these numbers, Mon, I will say there were a little bit of tears, because when you look at these numbers, I still don't understand how we did not win that football game. Listen to these numbers, Mon. The Bengals defense gave up 313 yards in Los Angeles in the Rams' home field. The Bengals had 2 sacks, 2 turnovers. The Rams were 6 of 15 on third down conversions, and the Bengals gave up 23 points, Mon. That, to me, is the most impressive group of stats that we can talk about throughout the entire 2021 season, is those 4 games, the way our defensive played, Mon. 2, 4, 6, 9 turnovers, 7, 8, 9, 10 sacks. 10 sacks, 9 turnovers, and those teams were a combined like 30%, 29% on third down. Unreal the way our defense played in those 4 games.
It was. You know what? Listen, if they continue to play that way and continue to, just improving some of these stats that we talked about, if they can just improve a little bit, maybe less TD passes and all that, if they continue doing that and our offensive line improves like we expect it to, our offense is going to go to another level. Because let's face it, our offense was good, but they were, they had their issues, and we know why. It's well documented what those issues were. This team is going to play in more Super Bowls, and it's just going to happen. So,
Agreed. Yeah. And again, let's real quick. The only one not returning from that defense is Larry Ogunjobi. Larry Ogunjobi is the only one right now on that roster that was not on that roster last year. The Bengals are returning their entire defense, Mon. That defense we just talked about. And I still think, don't close the door on Larry. I think Larry Ogunjobi could be returning. All right, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this podcast. Make sure you check us out on all of the podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify. Again, if you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you write some 5-star reviews for us. If you have the time, we would much appreciate it. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Bengals_Pulse9 and on Instagram at the same without the at Bengals_Pulse9. Mon, real quick, show them the new drip here. That's right, guys. Tell us what you think. We are looking at some vendors and stuff about creating some T-shirts and some hats, some Bengal Pulse gear. So let us know on the pod, comment, let us know what you think of the gear, and if you guys would be interested in that as well. Once again, this is the Bengals Pulse. He is Mon. I am Jake. Hoo day, Bengal fans. We will see you guys next week.
See you guys.